Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Footy Travellers podcast.
What's up, everybody? This is Colin.
And Mike.
We are the Footy Travelers, and we wish you a very warm welcome to the Footy Travelers podcast.
A welcome to all, and to all a good night.
And it sounds like Mike is still feeling festive, looking festive as well, keeping the holiday spirit alive even after the new year, which honestly, I'm not surprised to see, I guess. Mike, I would argue that your two favorite things in the world would be footy traveling, of course.
Of course.
And being a festive presence all year long. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, you could sum it up as saying I just really like to party and I love festivities.
Love it. Love that energy. Well, let's keep that energy going with some of our favorite things. Speaking of the holidays, the recent holidays, the new year, we're here today to talk about our favorite footy and travel related things from the past year, 2024, which might include some things you all listeners have seen from us on our other channels. It might include some things that you're hearing about for the first time.
So in these early stages of this new year we want to look forward a bit into 2025 at some of the things we're, looking forward to this year. That makes sense, right? But Colin,
yes,
I have a thought, perhaps an offer, you may say.
Oh, is this going to finally be your offer to cover all of our footy travels this year? Is that your late Christmas after the new year kind of present for me this year? Please say yes.
Well, not really, but it's the best next thing, or the next best thing. I say let's do this episode as a favorite things episode. This recap of this incredible 2024 year we had through the majestic voice of Julie Andrews in the classic holiday song, Favorite Things.
Okay, so a little Sound of Music reference, sounds like. Okay, well, despite the holidays having passed, and one could argue,
not
I guess
right
the
here.
Sound of Music, not on your head,
right?
Not on your head. Sound of Music, maybe overall, not really being a holiday film. Nor do I know how we'll do an entire episode through the voice of Julie Andrews, or what that really means, I guess. But I do suppose that the song itself does bring the right vibes and kind of the right energy. So, all right, I'll give you props for the reference, and I accept your offer, I suppose.
Perfect. Well, then this should be very simple, and I will refrain from doing the Julie Andrews voice too much. How about that?
Gotcha. Right, so you'd be the one sort of doing it through the voice of Julie Andrews. Okay.
I mean, that was the thought in my mind, but I mean, that could drag.
I know. I just don't have that voice. It's just it's not one of the things I bring to the table. But what I can maybe bring to the table is I'll add to your offer and make a suggestion.
Okay.
I do know that we are very capable of talking about our favorite footy travel things. Maybe ad nauseum at times, and to keep things kind of on beat, on track. I'm wondering if we are going to do this, maybe we should stick to some sort of framework. So, this isn't running longer than the 12 days of Christmas.
I already got you covered like warm woolen mittens. Oh. That was it. I'm only going to do that. That's my only Julie Andrews.
A bit deeper than Julie Andrews, but I'll
warm woolen mittens.
I'll take it.
Okay, so here's how this is going to go.
Okay.
I've taken the liberty of coming up with 5 categories covering things we've experienced this year. For each category we discuss, we'll answer with a certain number of things. You could call them favorite things. but specifically within that category. So, for instance, beginning with 5 things for the first category and slowly coming down to one thing in our 5th and final category, aka question. How does that sound? Keeps it framed.
Yeah. Okay. I think I follow. And I think I love it. Although you kind of, we'll do 5 things in the first category, 4 things in the second category. I'm finding myself curious what these 5 categories are. Are these going to be kind of surprises as we go, or are we at liberty to hear what they are before we start? Or
I think, a proper AP style outline to give you what we're doing is really probably fair. So let's begin with the structure.
Okay.
So top 5 will be the top 5 matches or travel moments of the year. Number 4 will be the top 4 content or media pieces that we've liked over the year. Number 3 will be the top 3 travel tips or lessons learned this past year.
Okay.
Number 2, top 2 things we're looking forward to in 2025. And then finally, number 1, our single favorite thing of 2024.
All right. Yeah, that makes total sense. Cool. Another thing comes to mind. Should we get the listeners involved as well?
I mean, I don't see why we couldn't.
Listeners, in this case, since Mike has given his approval on my suggestion, we would love to hear what you think about these categories and our respective lists. If you visit our Instagram page, if you visit our X accounts, you'll find a recent post with Mike and my answers for these categories. Drop a comment on them, either with any favorite of yours, any favorite things of yours from the past year, or even better, maybe drop a comment with some things that you're looking forward to the Footy Travelers covering or experiencing in 2025. If we like any of the suggestions, you might find us adding it into our plans for this next year. And who knows? Maybe we'll even bring you along into the loop to either experience it or help us talk about it here on the podcast.
Ooh, I love that. All right. Now, let's begin with our Footy Travelers' favorite things, listicle / questionnaire extravaganza.
What a title.
All right. Yeah, it's short. Keep it sweet. All right. Number 5 of our 5 questions. Name the top 5 favorite matches or travel moments that you had for this past year, 2024.
Okay.
So
me, I do that.
Yeah.
Or
yeah. No. Let's have you start.
Me, you
start.
You,
yeah.
Me,
you, me, you.
Okay.
I think you should start. I want to hear this.
All right. I'll go first. I'll start with maybe one of the more recent matches, and I will say that it was the USL Championship final, and being there in the stadium at Widener Field, watching the Colorado Switchbacks FC take that title. And I think, well, there's a bunch of things that really made it memorable and special for me. But if I had to classify all of them together, that match was a culmination of things. And it's always good for me to sort of like see things come together. I love closure, And I would say for the Switchbacks, it was the culmination of a great playoff run, a great season, and a fantastic end to what I think is their 10th anniversary season. They've been working at it, for 10 years now. Their theme this season was all for the Springs. And as I got to know the Switchbacks, I'd say a fair bit this year, I sort of felt that all for the Springs energy in it, kind of everything it did, which I should really explain is what I think they would describe as the bond between club and community. And I think that really vibed with me personally, us, I would say, as the Footy Travelers, and kind of some of the things we're after as we're involved in this, this endeavor, bringing community and bonds and connections through the sport. And so, yeah, huge congratulations to the Switchbacks, first of all. Shout out Nick Reagan, Eric Wark, and John Taylor in ticketing. Met them this year. Really good dudes. Shout out to some of the marketing and comms folks, Ashley, Tommy. And the last thing I'll add, I think why this is really memorable for me is just, again, thinking of culminations. It really put Colorado Springs, I think, as a community, and smaller cities in general, and the USL a bit more on the map. So that kind of all came together, I think, with this particular victory, this title, Colorado Springs being the one who won it this year. So, I mentioned USL Championship, sort of we'll call it one of the smaller leagues or lower leagues of the United States soccer system, below MLS, you could argue, but just as entertaining. And speaking of lower leagues, I think my next one will be that match we did at Wrexham. We did the UK trip this year, London to Wrexham to Manchester. But being at that stadium, the Racecourse, one of those sort of like smaller, intimate stadiums, feeling really close to not only the rest of the supporters, but the field and the players. And in Wrexham's case, an iconic story, for lack of a better descriptor, with, the whole documentary and the Rob McElhenney, Ryan Reynolds takeover and all that. It was just cool to see something we've watched on TV, streaming, just up close and personal. It felt up close and personal based on the size of the stadium, the environment, all that. So that really stood out for me. Number 3 would be, I'm going to stick with stadiums and matches, I think, again for this one, but counter to the small stadium, kind of vibe, visiting an internationally iconic stadium via Signal Iduna Park in Dortmund for the Euros this year. It was our first Copa América Euro Intercontinental Summer Tour meetup, you and I. We had done some games separately before that, but just, the grittiness of that stadium, seeing the yellow wall kind of turn into the blue wall with the French fans for this international match, France versus Poland. It was. Yeah. Again, closure, just finally seeing something I've heard so much about for a while and seen so many images online. And especially after, I guess it was following Borussia Dortmund's run into the, deep into the Champions League final. So all that stuff, all that culmination. I think you mentioned travel moments. So not just matches, but also maybe travels or travel moments. I would say watching the Germany round of 16 game. We weren't actually there, so I don't know if I can call it a match, but we were watching it in a beer garden in Munich, and which meant, we were amongst just a bunch of local German fans. They were all wearing those pink Germany away kits that Germany had this summer. There was a DJ, a big screen TV. Obviously, it's a beer garden. There was plenty of lagers and steins to be had. And I don't know. I loved it. Speaking of liking the party, I think that was probably one of my more favorite moments from that trip. The video evidence is there for it online, but that was just really cool. And yes, Mike, I know before you get to it, you're probably going to say it wasn't just a Germany game, but there was the Italy-Switzerland round of 16 game before that we watched.
Yeah, there was. Many people forgot about it, including myself. But we did see 2 matches there, but we had a good time there. I agree. That was a very fun time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just being there, again, in that environment with we'll call them local people, experiencing their home team, their home country, realizing success. I think Germany won that game. So last one, also more maybe travel and vibes versus actual match, but it was kind of centered on a match. I would say the experience of the tailgate before the Copa semifinal at MetLife Stadium. So it was the Argentina versus Canada semifinal. It was we'll call it the infamous match where I decided to travel really last minute and take one of your extra tickets, and that whirlwind of a journey after I thought my intercontinental summer tour was over. But but for me, like why that was memorable, I guess, was it was like this small group we had, right? The small little community, if you will, traveling to the game together on the train, having some, pre-match, pre-tailgate, brown bags, real classy.
Mm-hmm.
And, but then we get there and we meet up with, folks we hadn't seen in a while, fellow footy travelers like Andy and Rich and Craig. And then we also got to actually get FaceTime with one of our previous podcast guests that we had really never met face-to-face before. So Shirley, y'all will remember her as a proud Argentinian supporter. She's been on a couple episodes, actually. She was at the Copa América final after this experience that I'm talking about right now. But yeah, it was just being there again with the people that meant a lot to us, and just added to the footy experience. And again, not to over pontificate, but just those experiences, I think, are what we're all about. And they stand out to me as memorable moments from my 2024. So shout out to everyone who made that happen.
That was
anyway,
good.
yeah. 12 days of Christmas. Avoid going on too long. I've said my 5. Mike, on to you.
Mine, I don't know if we'll have as much of a package theme of culmination, because you could probably tie a lot of those things into culmination, even down to your last one, which was the tailgate, which was truly the culmination of our intercontinental tour together.
Indeed.
But mine are going to not have a theme. They're going to be just sort of sporadic. But I have thought about this because it's been a really good year. And so the first one is actually sort of the kickoff of the sequel, the pre-sequel. Is it
the prequel?
No, prequel, not pre-sequel. That's not real.
I think that's where the word comes from, though. I think you're on point. Yeah.
Of that intercontinental tour where we met up in DC, and we went to the USA versus Colombia pre-Copa warm-up match, essentially. And though that result was not great, the day itself, I think, was very cool. The reason being, we did an American Outlaws Instagram takeover, which I thought was very cool. We bopped around DC, filmed a lot of content, kicking the ball around on the monument row, and a lot of cool just like scenery. And as someone that lives nearby, I don't often go to DC to be the tourist. I'm usually going for just other reasons. So it was fun to just like enjoy a good summer day, kicking the ball around with you and making a bunch of fun content. And then the match was great. We had a fun tailgate, met a lot of really cool people, and once again, met up with a lot of people that we've seen in our recent travels or had on episodes of the podcast. And it was just like a good overall day, even though the match was a bit not great. We did not perform very well against a very talented Colombia team.
We won't mention the result.
We will not. And then the icing on the cake of that is we jammed in a lot on that day, and we then went to a good event that I support very dearly in terms of a nonprofit that Colin joined me as my date too. So that was a great day.
Overall, great day.
It. Yeah, very very jam packed. The next one on my list, number 2, I would say, is I got to mention the Euros in some point of this, and it kicked off in Frankfurt for me, a bit in a solo space. And when you start traveling solo, there are parts of it where you're sort of like, all right, I need to get into the mix of things, and I'm at a big spectacle, and I didn't get to go to the Fan Fest, which was not a great thing. I missed it. It filled up. And so I was like, I got to improvise here, and just kind of landed in this cool German bar. And it turned into just like an incredibly fun evening because it was Germany's match against Switzerland. So I'm in Germany, in Frankfurt, and they're playing Switzerland, who are, somewhat rivals in some regard, just being nearby. And this tiny little bar was packed with Swiss, Germans, and a bunch of Dutch fans. And so it was just sort of like, and then I'm there just like this American hanging out, everyone wondering, why are you here? You know that this isn't, your continent's tournament.
You have one going on right now.
Right, exactly. But they like welcomed me with open arms, and we're drinking steins of beer and doing shots, and it was a really fun match. Switzerland had the lead for a while, and then Germany came back and leveled it. And so both teams Germany didn't feel like they won that match, really. They felt like they should have won. And Switzerland treated it like a victory. And but everyone kind of just like got along and just sort of partied together. And we went out and took scooters to another part of the town. And I closed out that night walking home, listening to the USA match, Copa match on my headphones. And it was just like my first 24 hours touchdown in Europe. And it was awesome. That was my number 2. My number 3 was part of that Euro trip, but less regarding matches or in matches, but still centered around footy, was just going to Portugal. We fulfilled something that we've been talking about wanting to do for a while, which was visiting a country during an international tournament that we felt was going to continue to compete in the later rounds, so that we can get the vibe of being in that country rather than in the host country.
Right.
And so we anticipated Portugal being a competitive team, and both a country that neither of us have been to before. And
this is true.
It was awesome. It did not disappoint at all. I would say, there are many highlights, and I'm encapsulating it as just Portugal as a whole was awesome, but there was a moment that was very footy centric to me, which was unfortunately leaving you while we were in the Algarve and doing a trip up to Porto by myself, and sitting on this mountaintop, which was overlooking the river, at a Portugal match watch party. It was Portugal versus France, and had no idea it existed, but just, maybe this is a ode to a lessons or tips, but like just asking a couple local business owners where would be a good place to watch some football. And one guy literally like walked out of the business that we were in, it was like bar, and like points across the hill, and he's like, that mountain is going to have the match and all the locals are going to be there. Oh, wow. And I was like, okay. And so I took my suitcase and took a taxi up there because I wasn't going to carry it, and posted up and watched this match on this big screen overlooking the river, sun beaming down, drinks and all of that. And then the match went into extra time and I had to get to the airport. So I watched the rest of the match on the iPad of these 2 girls that were on their way to the Azores next to me. And nice. We finished watching the match there. And it was just like...
Were they Portuguese?
They were Portuguese.
They were obviously rooting for...
Yes.
For the Portuguese team. Yeah.
So it was just all in all another packed day. I think that is something that I often do, is probably put too much into a singular 24 hours, but
pack it all in and party it up.
Right. It's like, well, that's what we're here for. So that was just a really fun day and an awesome experience of, again, travel, the culture, being a local, feeling like a local, and enjoying the footy all in one. My fourth, I think I'm on fourth now.
I'm counting for you.
Is less, it's travel related, and it's one that I just like didn't think I would ever really experience, and one that you also experienced this year too. Our first flights in business class, which on airline business class, I would say.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be able to get the United Polaris flight to London. And, everyone says that once you go to first class, business class, it's going to be hard to go back to economy. And I will attest. It is. But it was something very cool that I was not anticipating ever really experiencing, and now I know what the other side, the elite feel like. And
the other half, or the 1%, or whatever the proportion is.
Feels like the 1%, yeah. But that was pretty sweet, and I still make the justification that I would rather save the money and do the cool things while you are at the destination rather than spend it on the flight. But as I get older, man, like, I don't know. Having comforts on a long haul flight is pretty necessary for some things.
And for someone who likes to pack it in and party it up and is getting older, arriving fresh, having maybe lied down to sleep, could be helpful.
It's critical. Yeah. which may allude to one of my travel tips
that
I think I have in mind.
But
and then
first,
my last match or moment that I really liked, or it was a highlight for me, was, I'm going to actually bundle it and say I got to see Chelsea play twice this year at Stamford Bridge. First against Gent in the Conference League tournament, which was a score fest, and it was awesome. And got to go to that match through a friend of the pod, essentially, and a friend of a friend, making connections everywhere we go. Kunal,
shout out.
Big shout out. Let me sit with him. An absolute legend who we may get the opportunity to speak with and have people hear his stories of some crazy footy travels. But watching that match with him was very entertaining. It's been a bit since I'd been back to Chelsea. And then fortunately enough, another month and a half later, I was there with you and had another great win for the Blues. So it was a good year when it came to live football, especially the club that I support the most. So I would say that rounds out my top 5 moments.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, I was happy to hear that some of those, especially the last one, included our joint travels, our joint experiences together. We do a great job, I think, of getting to our respective communities, footy matches, and doing some traveling of our own as we live separately for now.
Yeah.
Still working on Mike to move to Denver, but the stuff we've done individually, we've done together, we've done with others in the fellow footy traveler community. Yeah, those were all pretty solid top 5s.
And that doesn't even, I wouldn't say it doesn't scratch the surface, but there's still a lot that we did not.
There's some things we left out.
Right.
Can't put them all in a top 5.
Then it wouldn't really be a list.
That wouldn't make any sense. All right. Well, what's next then?
I think we go into number 4.
Steer us.
Yeah, let me steer us to this next question. So the next is name 4 other podcasts. So not ours, because that wouldn't be fun. We know that we love our podcast.
What if it's my favorite? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, we're putting that aside because this is for everyone else. So podcasts or episodes specifically, maybe films or other media that we've enjoyed this year specifically. I would say in the footy travel realm, just things that, we valued.
I'm going to start with a bit of a cheat. Pardon me. And I'll say it's a cheat because this piece of media came out technically at the end of 2023. And I think we've actually already mentioned it in previous episodes. But it was largely watched, I would say, for me at least, in 2024. So as far as my experiences go, it was the 3rd episode of that Under Pressure Netflix doc about the U.S. Women's National Team World Cup 2023, journey, I'd call it. Ultimately didn't end well for us, but in that episode, specifically minute mark, I think it's like 10:30, somewhere around there, 10 and a half.
Yeah, this guy.
The camera cuts during some sort of montage type scene to this gloriously threaded stars and stripes onesie wearing footy Mike coming across, through, I think you're walking through the mezzanine or something, but then later at minute mark, 16 something, I think. So a few minutes, 5 to 6 minutes later, another montage type scene. Our sort of Women's World Cup Threes Company crew, you, myself, Kelsey, we're just center frame right there in this cool slow motion kind of fans in the crowd shot. And, it was just kind of cool. I don't know. Selfishly, it's just kind of cool to see myself, yourself, Kelsey, just in this really cool production, the theatrical sort of entertaining, but also nostalgic, even though it wasn't a great result kind of piece. So I don't know. I've never really been on a Netflix special before. So maybe that's.
And I think it's pretty cool, the fact that that like kind of came organically. We pushed ourselves into that position because we were not sitting in those seats the first half. And we were like, we're not really feeling the energy or the vibe in this section. And we like just rolled over to the behind the goal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just, I
Life,
don't know. I
life
loved
is
it.
about positioning yourself, Mike.
Right. Exactly.
You know? And speaking of which, you remind me, there's actually another piece to this Footy Travelers appearing in this documentary, but it's actually the trailer. Kind of towards the end of the theatrical trailer, there's this one shot of Mike. And I think shout out to Ed Ball. You guys will remember him as the Qatar World Cup alcohol map guy. Just right there in the stands behind the second half goal in Wellington for the Netherlands game. Boom. Quick, like half second shot. But the two of you just kind of going nuts. That was sweet too. But anyway, yeah, I think top 4, right? So moving on, second piece of media I really liked. You did mention podcasts. I do have to give a shout out to, I'd say, the art form of podcasting generally. And I'm gonna shout out the Sweeper podcast, just kind of overall, not necessarily an episode or what have you, but in the spirit of not only footy but sort of traveling and exploring the world. Listeners, if you want another good footy, I'd say footy travel related podcast, it's a really great source for kind of obscure footy stories from around the world. Check out the Sweeper podcast. Fair warning though, more of like stories on the pitch, whereas our stuff maybe is just a little off the pitch kind of thing, related, themed. But yeah, check them out. The next piece I think I'll say is, and I'm already chuckling. It's something that I came across because of footy. I wouldn't call it necessarily footy centric, but I don't know, maybe Mike, you'll remember too, during the Olympics, which included a lot of football, at least for me, watching midday, was this comedian, this Australian comedian, I think became really popular with his Instagram posts, his reels, and he kind of themed it around the guy who decided, blank different sports or, things. Anyway, Jimmy Reese, I'm not really sure how you pronounce it, but Australian comedian, Jimmy Reese. Check out his Instagram page, but specifically check out his reel of the guy who decides the Premier League. He also had one. It was like pasta or football player was sort of the title of this comedic reel. Anyway, I kind of saw those two things. They came up in my feed, and then I dove deeper into Jimmy Reese's Instagram page, and he's absolutely hilarious. We can share some links to his page in the show notes on here, but yeah, check him out. That definitely was a highlight of my summer of 2024, at least. And then that's 3, yeah. So 4.
Yeah, one more.
All right. The last one, and probably the biggest one for me. Have to give so many props and big shout out to someone we've actually met. He may not remember us, but Ellie Menjum. Mike, you and I met Ellie as sort of a host and content creator for Copa 90 during the Women's World Cup. We were in Melbourne. You and he kind of had this sort of like moment, or we were both there, but I think you guys really leaned into it. He's kind of trolling us, and that can be found somewhere on our feed, somewhere on Instagram too. Or
you mean 90s. Buried deep in my heart and in my brain? That's where it's found. It's mostly there. It's never leaving.
But we've kind of kept track of Ellie and his stuff with Copa 90 since then. And recently, a couple of weeks ago now at this point, probably, but it was right before Christmas. Anyway, once in a lifetime, he produced this sort of 4-part series on this really fascinating idea that I think we can really vibe with. So Ellie wanted to capture what it was like for Argentinians to experience the Argentinian national team's journey during World Cup 2022 in Argentina. So as Argentina, maybe by the skin of their teeth, escapes the group stage and moves on into the knockout stage of World Cup 2022. Ellie goes down to Argentina, Buenos Aires area, and starts production on this film that he released, again, just recently on YouTube. So again, check out Once in a Lifetime on YouTube. But I think why it's such a highlight for me, not only the recency of it and the nostalgia of it, but it was like this, I describe it as this well-composed, expertly told story that centered on this just lucky bet. Like he went down there not knowing what the outcome of the World Cup was going to be, right?
Right.
But he got to experience the teams and the nation's journey to the final from a variety of angles. He was on the ground there with the people of Argentina, and there's incredible backstory to it. Even for that, the history of sort of Maradona and Messi's trajectory that still goes on today. All the interviews, they were incredibly illuminating, true to form. I think anyone who watches it will learn about Argentinian culture the way Ellie intends his storytelling to allow for. The viewers will experience Argentinian culture through the lens of that country and those countrymen's greatest love, and that's their football and their football legends. And I'll just kind of leave it there. Check it out. It's on YouTube. Once in a Lifetime. And maybe I'll just say one more thing. Ellie, if you're listening, we would love to have you on the podcast to talk about your own footy travels, your experience producing the series. But otherwise, props to you. That was an incredible 4-part series you put together. The storytelling was magnificent and definitely deserves a spot on my top 4 pieces of media of 2024. So have you seen that, Mike? Have you watched it yet?
I have not watched it yet.
Okay.
I want to do it in, I don't know, not necessarily one sitting, but when I have a bit more of a routine so I can like really digest it and not just sort of, when it's a series, you don't want to like break it up too much. So
watch them close together at least.
Yeah.
I think each episode's like close to a half hour. So
awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love that. When I saw he was doing a lot of really good promotion for it, and I was pumped. I was like, yeah, this is one of those treats, you got something that it's going to be really cool. It's a really good piece of media, but you don't want to just like haphazardly experience it. You want to like really sit with it. I'm like, yep, I am prepping for that.
It was good. I had feels. I might have teared at moments. Like,
wow.
I'm not trying to blow smoke. This was it does. I'm so stoic.
Yes, of course.
But Ellie, you broke me down, man. Well done. What about you?
Nicely done.
Your top 4 media?
Yeah, my top 4. I will. I'll carry on that. Good feels, good vibes. Something that we look forward to, and it's maybe a little bit more cliched, especially now given the fact that we've now visited Wrexham. But Welcome to Wrexham is, in my opinion, just a masterpiece of a documentary. And as we were in Wrexham, we started just kind of learning more that it was its intentions to being more of a documentary about Wrexham rather than a documentary about Rob and Ryan's takeover. And they just do an exceptional job of highlighting the people and the feeling of that community and what it means to them. And one of the things that I've shared with a lot of people since we've gotten back from Wrexham, which was still fairly recently, was the small story that that these gentlemen that we met at the turf with Marcus, who was playing our host, and giving us the tour of Wrexham since it was his 4th time there. And we met these 3 gentlemen who he's now become good friends with, and they are all from Wrexham, and they made a trip to the United States after Wrexham got promoted and sort of turned a trip to Vegas to visit Marcus and celebrate with the team into a trip to LA. And they said, we were driving down the road near Rodeo Drive, and we saw a big billboard on the street that said, "Welcome to Wrexham." And we just couldn't believe that is our town, that we are in the Hollywood and they are talking about us. And that kind of just gave me chills because it tied the moment of being in Wrexham to the show and the real life, lives that show has touched, and a lot of benefits to that that community. And it's such a great show that has a lot of good feelings. I've gotten teary-eyed. I've cried on a couple episodes because it just feels so authentic. Even, in a world in which it can be challenging to find authenticity in media and Hollywood, it does feel true.
The most authentic of places.
Right, exactly.
Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah, fair.
So it's one that it just combines, I think, very neatly the things that I am passionate about, which is like the community, the people, and how football brings people together, and that they just do an exceptional job of that. And I encourage anyone to watch it, especially I actually encourage people that are not soccer fans to watch it, because it's got Ted Lasso vibes, in the sense that it is not a soccer documentary. It really doesn't revolve around soccer. It's just an element. It's not the driving force.
It's kind of like us, it's the impetus to bring us toward maybe a greater goal.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
It is soccer heavy. It's footy heavy, but
and I think, it's I know it's probably cliched and we talk about it a lot, but that, I was excited about the new season and it coming out in 2024, and then watching it as a lead up into our trip was just really special and kind of came to a reality for me.
I just have to second your nod of this in your list. I've actually been surprised by how many people I've mentioned it to and haven't seen it. I just kind of assume everyone has, because I'm very naive about how much everyone else loves footy.
Right. Same.
But also like Ryan Reynolds, I was like, I'll mention Ryan Reynolds, and then they'll say, oh yeah, that thing. I haven't watched it, but now I know what you're talking about. But yeah,
right.
Check it out, listeners. Check it out if you haven't.
It's very much worth it.
Yeah.
Next one for me, also a bit more of like hitting home, and maybe a little bit cliched again. Not surprising that Men in Blazers is a piece of media that I cherish and love. The two of them are just like exceptional, and I just love what they've done from the early stages of this sort of small idea around talking around football in a comedic fashion and storytelling, into a full-blown media company, and just putting together not just a podcast but a television show, and then movies and films and series,
events,
exactly, like in-person events and stuff. They just do an awesome job. And so broadly, I just always praise them and give them a shout out. They are one of the few podcasts that I would say I listen to fairly consistently. But one episode that I particularly liked, and I listened to just recently on my drive to New England via Vermont and New Hampshire, is with artist Noah Kahn, who I also like, and he's from Vermont/New Hampshire. He's on the border, and played in leagues that my brother and my brother-in-law play in, and is a huge soccer fan, and is also a Chelsea fan. And
there it is.
And he's a big advocate for mental health and just a lot of cool things that he's doing that I didn't really know until listening to that episode. And it's just, it's all through the fun banter and lightheartedness of Raj, but still being able to talk about important things that, football is important, but there are also other important things, and how people come up with the sport and how it makes them who they are. So
totally,
I just love that episode. I think, everyone involved is exceptionally talented, and I like, consuming content when people are talented that make it, like Ellie.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's a couple.
That's a couple. I'm going to do one that's a bit adjacent, but was one that was travel centric, and I really enjoyed it. A lot of people listen to podcasts to learn things, to be educated. Hopefully some people find education and knowledge from this podcast. And sometimes it's one that you just sort of use as an opportunity to not necessarily pass time, but like feel like you are consuming something that can be beneficial to you. And I had found this podcast from the folks from Dirt in My Shoes, and it's called Exploring the National Parks Podcast. And this couple has just been to all the national parks, and they do a really good job of describing what it's like and what you need to know, because that is very important. And for me, I was doing a lot of driving, and so I kind of killed two birds with one stone type of thing, and was like, I'm on my way to some of these parks, and so I want to understand what I should expect. Some of these places have a lot to do, and if you don't have all that time, they maybe give you a condensed list, sort of like what we're doing.
Well, yeah, condensed.
Yeah. Condensed is
maybe
loose term.
We're giving you a list.
But no, I just they did a good job. It was I've listened to a few of their episodes and on parks that I've been to or on my way to certain parks, and it's just kind of the real kind of reviews and what to avoid and what you should be mindful of. But they're also very funny, and so I highly encourage people that are doing any travels, and especially footy travels near some of the big national parks, definitely give it a listen. It's knowledgeable but entertaining.
Maybe anyone traveling this coming summer for all of the footy that's happening between the the Club World Cup, the Gold Cup. If anyone's taking any road trips, gosh, the summer after that with the World Cup.
Exactly.
That could be helpful.
And we've met so many people along the way who are excited about the 2026 World Cup and wanting to make that the impetus for a trip to Mexico, United States, and Canada.
Which you could say is America.
It's North America. And how they want to, shoehorn some other things into it, not just footy. And so parks are obviously a big treasure of this country. And so, it's worth giving it a listen, and, go explore the parks. Leave only footprints, though.
As they say.
And my last one, this is going to be pretty obvious, but another one that we've got a real life experience with, but classic football kits or classic football shirts.
Yes.
They've been doing really cool stuff for a while. And so it was I wouldn't call it a bucket list, but it was a wish list item for me to want to visit one of their stores. And so being able to do that in Manchester with you was very fun. Getting to talk to the people that work there, who were super friendly, really interested to just sort of share their experience in a company that is, I would argue, kind of on the rise.
Totally.
Jerseys are a big thing now. They are growing substantially, classic ones specifically. And so just being there, and one of the things that I took away from being a external consumer of their content, so their Instagram pages, and just what they've been doing from a promotional perspective, and then like stepping foot into their storefronts, is this like overarching positive vibe, right? It's like almost none of us are competitors anymore. Like we always kind of think about rivalries and stuff, but it's like, no, we all can kind of agree, like we love our clubs, but like we can also appreciate some really beautiful design fashion and kits. I appreciated looking at some really cool classic like Arsenal and Tottenham jerseys, and I was like, oh, that's sweet.
Even
would
Tottenham
I buy it?
Ones.
Yeah, occasionally I don't mind them, but it's like one of those things where it's like, would I buy this and own this? Probably not. But I can very much so respect it for what it is on its face value of a piece of art, really. And I think they do a tremendous job of just like extending that positivity and that like niche culture of football into their storefronts and into what the media that they put out.
Yeah. So a nod, maybe not even just the digital media, which I guess was where my mind was, but the visual, physical, real world media of kit culture. Fair.
Yeah.
Well done.
And like, even like, the Manchester storefront was awesome. You saw the Miami one. But the Manchester one I thought was really cool. Like they had these two beautiful murals of both the two major Manchester clubs. So you've got these beautiful historic Manchester City mural with the blue tones above all of the section of their city kits, and then just to the other adjacent wall they had the United ones. And I was just like, they just did it right, and it was very, very cool.
Okay. Yeah, so if anyone's in Manchester, Miami, London, or New York, I want to say, check out.
And LA, I think, no?
Yes.
Yes. In LA? Or maybe it's upcoming?
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
All right.
Should we move on?
Let's move on.
We're getting deep into this one. Oh, baby.
We are. All right.
After 4 comes 3. Yeah. What's 3? Top 3 what?
Top 3 travel tips or lessons learned this year, or maybe some may call them learnings. I don't know. Maybe
some people who like silly words.
Not be named from Colin's perspective.
Yeah. All right. Top 3 travel tips, lessons learned. I'll try to punch through this. This is coming from I would say, minimal amount of money that I actually had to spend to travel on flights for our Intercontinental Summer Tour between Copa América matches and the Euro 2024 matches in Germany. And the tip or the lesson learned is save your points and your miles for big international trips, or at the very least, last minute ones. I think I used some points to make that last minute booking to get from Denver out to, East Rutherford, New Jersey for that semifinal for the Copa. Yeah. Not only does that help you afford, all the things that, we do, big international trips and hotel stays and flights, and maybe even, I don't know, using some points to get that first class or business class lay down seat. So you'll arrive well rested. But it actually, the second thing I would say is it makes the decision easier. Like that loss aversion when it comes to like spending money and losing money, it's not a factor. It's less stressful.
It's not as much of a factor.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, there's always sort of like, your cost, your opportunity costs, if you think about it. But, I was able to travel to, and like I said, attend an intercontinental tournament semi in a less than 24-hour window, basically, because of that strategy. So do that. Save your points, save your miles for the big ones. Also this summer, I would say, or from the summer Euro specifically, I remember the beer garden experience is coming to mind. Always ask wherever you're going if there are, or if maybe, you suggest if there will be cancellations. If you're looking to get in somewhere where you don't have a reservation, another way of saying this might be like stay in someone's front of mind. The gatekeepers, the hostesses, the hosts, whatever. We showed up to the beer garden without a reservation fairly late, prior to the first kickoff of that Italy game. And they were like, nope, sorry. I'm like, all right, well, we kind of turned around. We were a little resolved to find something else, but then, we thought, now let's just ask if there's a way in. Just give yourself a second opportunity. And if you need to, just sort of center it on, hey, are there any cancellations? If there are, could you contact me? And then third one, make that effort to add a stopover on a big trip, a stopover leg. For us, it was Portugal on the way back from Germany, right? And again, it's something we had talked about for a while. Stop somewhere where the country is still playing in the international tournament, experience it with the local fans, if you will. But as a footy traveler, obviously you want to do it in that type of place. So as we, think about the upcoming World Cup 2026 for the men, do we do group stage here in the States? And then I don't know, do we go somewhere else for the knockout stage and experience it, with the fans there? Just a thought, just a tip, just an idea. I'll leave it there. But we may or may not be talking more about that in the days and weeks and months to come.
Ooh, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm going to just dovetail it and maybe call it half of my answer here, because the stopover is one that I very much so encourage people to do. Yeah. And if you're fortunate enough, find one that offers a free stopover or a
right.
layover that is free. So I did sort of that.
A free lay?
A free lay, yes, not a Frito lay.
No,
not
as fun.
I did that with yours. I very much so. I saw that it was on its way. We were already in Portugal and recommended to visit. And it, is not necessarily a footballing part of the Portuguese country. They are not as diehard as, say, Madeira, where Cristiano Ronaldo is from.
Yeah.
But still a fascinating and beautiful place, and very underrated. And I did not anticipate it being so just like majestic. And so now it's my like free tip, because if anyone is flying over the Atlantic, they do offer free stopovers, and it is very much worth checking out. So
real quick, do you have to do it on a specific airline? I mean,
Azores Air
is, okay.
Yeah, Azores Air is the airline that offers the free stopovers.
Okay.
Similar to like what Iceland Air has done in the
Yep.
past too, knowing that you are a lot of times going over the Atlantic. So just take a look, see if it offers it. I mean, it's just one of those things where it can also break up a long flight, give you a little bit of chance to rest and experience a new place.
Cool.
So speaking of rest, that is my next tip, which is, if you are like me and cannot sleep on planes very easily, unless you are in a business class lay down pod, it is okay to find a hotel that has early check-in, or, to your tip, go to the hotel, and maybe it is before check-in time, but ask, are you available to let me in early? And this is something I did in Frankfurt. I got in super early. They let me in. I slept for 4 hours, and that's what rejuvenated me to then be able to go out and have that awesome night in Frankfurt.
Nice.
Did the same thing in London. Got into London, found a hotel early, and just kind of caught up on my sleep there. As I've gotten older, I cannot power through the adrenaline as much, I think.
Or you're just getting less of it. Yeah.
Right. And so those are some key things that I probably should have been doing many, many years before. But I am now coming to find that it is worth it. Even if it is a small marginal fee, it can totally jumpstart your trips. And if you're in a country for a while and in a different time zone, it just helps ease that jet lag and that exhaustion.
So even if they say you have to be charged for it after you ask and advocate for yourself, small fees might be worth it for certain things.
Right. And that's, every person's, depending on how tired you are, sometimes you may, really need it, or sometimes you'll power through, but it's always worth, I think, asking and looking into it if you are doing a pretty long haul flight and not getting a lot of sleep. And I would advise, just as a reminder for people, especially if you are going to Europe in the summertime, not all hotels have air conditioning, and it is getting quite hot. So
is this number 3?
This is like a 2.2.
Okay.
But I would just say, don't forget that part. That is a lesson I also learned this summer, and unfortunately didn't get a lot of sleep because I was not in a hotel that had air conditioning. So that was just like a little side jaunt tip. This one's super simple. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, especially knowing that on January 9th, 2025, Britain is requiring electronic visas, and people needing to make sure that they are registered into entering into the UK. But also, when you return back to the United States, a quick and easy way to get through customs is with Mobile Passport. And it's an app on your phone. It's called, wait for it, CBP MPC, or it's formally called Mobile Passport. But you can download this app. Once you land, you go through all the questions you would go through in customs. You take a selfie, and you blow through all of the immigration lines. It is essentially a cheat code. It's a free app that does not cost anything but just the space on your phone.
So this is something different than something like global entry. Is that correct? Okay. But
that's correct.
CBP sounds like it's still run by Customs and Border Patrol.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the mobile passport app, and it has changed names, which has made it a little bit trickier for people to find. But every time I've used it, I have essentially cut all the lines, because they have typically, most international airports that have immigration will have its own designated line for these mobile passport users. And sometimes they're faster than the global entry, because global entry is getting quite popular.
Yes.
So it's sort of this like unknown cheat code, honestly. So if you're tired of waiting in long lines at immigration coming back into the United States, like, do it. I've literally sat next to people on planes and said, "Oh, you should download this." They download it, they fill it out while we're waiting to deboard, and they like breeze through the line with me.
Okay. Cheat code heard.
Activated.
There it is. We are chugging along, but we still have more to go. So let's, should we move on to our top two? What is it? Top two
things we are looking most forward to in this year of 2025.
Okay.
What are you most excited about?
Well, I'll tell you what. I've gone first a bunch of times. Why don't you go first? Keep it going.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, put down that beverage.
Get that drink down.
There's no time for breaks now.
I would say that my first thing that I am, looking forward to, and it sounds kind of silly and simple, but one of the things that I enjoy a lot about what we're doing with the Footy Travelers is, once again, football kits. And we have technically a new year ahead of us, and I want to get one more potential Footy Travelers jersey designed to
just one more?
Well, just one more for this year in preparation for the very big year that I think we anticipate having in 2026. Just one more opportunity to like test out a couple fun design ideas that I've had, and see if anything sticks for us to hopefully stick the landing in 2026 on an awesome USA, Mexico, Canada World Cup kit.
Yeah. FFT kit heads. You heard it here first. Maybe get ready for another Footy Travelers kit.
A fire drop is about to come. All right, y'all.
What else? What else looking forward to?
So I'm looking forward to that. And then, I would say potential trips just generally. I've got my sights on a few places that I will not necessarily reveal right now, but I think this is the first year. Well, I think this is the first year that we have maybe a bit more of an open calendar. We don't have as much locked in big events called like the tent poles that we often do have. And I think part of that is maybe trying to hear what people suggest and see maybe where we are encouraged to explore, and where it will take us, because kind of that wild card is a bit exciting in itself. Like everyone over the holidays was like, okay, where's the next big trip? Where are the Footy Travelers going to go? And I've been like, I don't know. We're going to see how this sort of feels out. I mean, we've got some major tournaments in the States that we may explore, but I think the world is quite literally our oyster in 2025, I think.
Literally.
Yes, literally. Wow. It's a giant oyster.
Wow. The world has changed.
Yeah. It's a new year. People don't get to just have changes. The world can change.
The globe is now a mollusk.
A mollusk.
I think,
yes.
I think oysters are mollusks.
I think so.
Well, I have a similar answer, but maybe with a slightly different tone, because one of the things I am looking forward to this coming year is, and again, I'm going to sort of like speak about it generally, but it involves the trips we're going to do. And I say the ones we are going to do because my friend, I have some ideas.
You always do.
But it's, I think the way I want to describe this though is I'm looking forward to creating a more direct way for fellow Footy Travelers to connect, both with us, but with each other. And one of those things is through fellow Footy Travelers trips, journeys, traveling. So there's that. We I already kind of alluded to this grand idea I may or may not be revealing soon for World Cup 2026, but that's 2 years out from now. Well, 2 summers out from now. There will be more. There will be more ideas that we'll share when it comes to our upcoming trips this year, listeners. So be ready for that. Check out the Instagram page and X accounts, and even the website footytravelers.com for more news on that. But the second part of that idea of creating ways for fellow footy travelers to connect to each other, I think is I'm looking forward to us putting together a more sort of formal platform. And that very much, I think, to your point about, well, we're not really sure, maybe TBD, it's still coming, to form. More to come, but just a goal. I'm going to put it out there into the universe right now. I'm going to express it. I'm going to articulate it, and we'll see how it comes back around to us or not.
Right.
So that's kind of like the I'll call it the outbound journeying of fellow footy travelers. And how they can connect, through trips and maybe this new platform. I'm looking forward to more fellow footy travelers coming to Denver for a potential NWSL team. So I don't know if anyone's heard, but it sounds like Denver is not only in that short list of cities to be awarded the next NWSL expansion team. Sounds like I've heard some rumors that the league is in negotiations with whatever the investment group is out here. So hopefully that means we'll actually get that team. And then we can kind of complete the trifecta of like MLS, USL Championship, and NWSL pro teams all along the Front Range of Colorado. So it may or may not also lessen the blow that Denver was not selected as a World Cup host city. So
Yeah.
I have, as a Denver local, I have much to look forward to. I hope.
Denverite.
I hope. Yeah, Denverite.
A
Exactly.
Denverin.
Yeah, the Denverites. All right, man. Top 2 becomes our number 1.
This is it.
You go for it again first. What's
the last question of us of this episode for us? The number 1 thing that you'll take away from this year.
Okay.
It could be a singular moment or a trip or an experience or whatever you think you'll remember or use as reference the most when recalling this year and when you look back at 2024.
Okay.
So I will start and say this was the year that I will remember as when I did my branded kind of West Coast wandering trip. And I turned this road trip from Baltimore quite literally across the country for many reasons, but one of them being one that I was able to start seeing some really cool football in a lot of different places. Stopping in Knoxville to see Knoxville SC and the vibes that they've got and the excitement that they have with the new stadium coming in and the really strong team and just seeing how it's pulled the community together that doesn't have a lot of football culture outside of the university, and then going to Nashville SC and seeing that stadium, which is beautiful, and catching up with some other former podcast guests from the Austin FC team and their fans, and then jumping over to Sporting KC, which was also another really exciting time, and watching them in a semifinal match, which I won, and enjoying that supporter section and how cool that stadium is and how that's tied that town together that is already a championship winning town, but soccer's coming on the map for men and women.
Yeah. That was that US Open semi?
Yes, it was against the Indy 11. And so that was just a very cool trip that sort of ended, I would honestly say, with 2 more matches that were pretty cool, which was seeing the Switchbacks with you in Colorado Springs, and then heading to a Rapids match a little bit later, in I think a week or 2 later. And so just seeing a lot of really good football across this beautiful, vast country.
It's big.
It's big, and it's sort of thinking about all the excitement about 2026, and I've been really reflective around, the last time the US hosted the Men's World Cup in 94 and how of a big occasion that was for my soccer fandom and how I became such a big fan because of that event. And so then doing this road trip, and granted it was a solo road trip, but getting the opportunity to meet a lot of really cool people and see how soccer has impacted their lives and hear about the excitement of that World Cup coming up, was just like, it got me very energized for more to come from the US, not just the US national team, right? We always kind of classify the success of this country's soccer organization in the national teams, but there are a lot of other leagues and clubs that are putting soccer on the map, whether it be in small communities or big cities, and it just keeps me hopeful and optimistic, I think, of what it means to this country and the people that continue to learn about soccer and why it's so special to them. And I got to sort of see it through the heart of that. And you kind of mentioned Ellie and his trip into Argentina, and my trip was not nearly as expansive or documented maybe, but it still had a lot of those similar vibes of just like meeting people that are still really loving the sport and what it means to them. And who knows, maybe the next time a big event happens in the United States, it could be at the level of Argentina in 2022. It's one of those things where there's still a lot of upside to soccer in the US. And if I've said it once, I'll say it again, buy on the dips. Like we're still a bit low in the world rankings from what we think we deserve from a US soccer community. But it's still there. People are excited about it.
Yeah. High expectations always. Just gotta make it happen. 2026 could be the year.
Yeah. So I would say
semi-bound, or at least.
Yes. So for me, in a year with a lot of international travel, which I loved and was fantastic and saw some great matches and moments, I would say looking inward into my own country, my home country, that was a pretty special trip, pretty amazing time.
Would you say that your experience locally here, domestically, I should say, in the US, in a year that saw you abroad a couple times, was the pearl within the greater oyster?
Yeah, it was the new formation of the oyster that was yet to come in 2025. So yes, maybe I think the pearl could be a great, a great non. I don't even know. I don't even know how to carry this metaphor.
Then don't, because I have a follow-up question. Do pearls come from oysters or clams? Maybe I just got it wrong. So we don't have to answer that. Anyway.
This is not a science show, as anyone can tell. We're not biologists.
We're off the rails. We need to wrap this up. So I'm just going to take the mic and say, I think I'll kind of start the way you did. And I'll say that, 2024 was the year that, and for me, it was the year, and I already alluded to this idea, but I'd say it's bigger than just the one example I used. But it was the year that began more face-to-face connecting with FFTs, and really, I would say, experiencing in real life more genuine connection with fellow footy travelers. Whether they're people we've met on previous trips, past podcast guests, people we've only met on video, or just like internet friends, I'd call them. People we've only typed to with our thumbs on our devices. Again, it was meeting up with Shirley. I mentioned her before that Copa semifinal in July. It was hanging out with Lee Galvin in London on Black Friday. Having a coffee with Mark Ogden, a beer with Tom Stoker in Manchester in December. Those moments, those things, those people I think we've proven in past years that we have an ability to create incredible experiences for ourselves on every inhabitable continent so far. And 2024 was the year that we kind of took it to the next level, where we collaborated with fellow footy travelers, like the American Outlaws. You mentioned that collab we did before the Columbia game, like Mark Eagleman Cranston, to create, this unique, intimate, and unforgettable experience that we created between London and Wrexham for other travel-loving soccer fans, not just ourselves, So, 2024 was the year of all that. And I'll add, it was the year that was just the beginning of that. So I'm really looking forward to 2025 and taking that a step further. So
that elevation, as I say in work, there's solidification and then there's elevation. And I think 2024, we elevated our game.
Elevate. All right. Well, gosh, I think, does that do it? We ran through it.
We did it. I mean, it's crazy how when you start making smaller numbers for answers or options, it speeds things up a little bit. So we did it. And I'm going to remind our listeners, all of you can do it too. This is not just an us thing. If our favorite things rundown made you think of anything fun or incredible we need to hear about, we want to hear about it. That's to an ode to what Colin was saying. You all are doing some really crazy and great things too. And we love hearing about it and then connecting with you through this beautiful world in which we've created of the Footy Travelers. So don't forget to comment on Instagram or X posts of our 2024 review. And, we want us to be an engaging discussion rather than just us telling you all the fun things we've done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you want to reach out to us in other ways, whatever medium kind of suits your fancy, you can leave us a voice note. If you want to share something here on the podcast, just send that over email, footytravelers@gmail.com. Send us a social DM. Honestly, just whatever works for you. We'd love to hear from you.
And I know I alluded to it a little bit before, but I think we are due for a suggestion on where we should go next year. Yeah. I mean, I think that is just
next year natural. Being this year.
Yeah, next year
2025
year of 2025. Sorry, okay. I still, it's one of those when you go into the crossover to the new year, you still forget.
You're still writing 2024 on checks and things, right? Do people still write checks?
My dad does.
Oh, okay. Shout out, Bill.
So, I think a suggestion. We're always open to suggestions, but I think this year specifically, I'd love to hear about where people think we should go.
I concur. We're always looking for that next adventure. And again, I think I mentioned it before, but who knows? If we like it, maybe we'll take you with us.
So help us spin that proverbial globe and see where we shall land.
Boom. Yeah. Well, we're past the new year. I don't have a glass of champagne, but I do have a lovely Footy Travelers embossed.
I've got a Christmas red cup.
I got a water bottle. But either way, let's raise a toast.
Yeah, I love that.
Cheers to another great year. And
cheers.
Yeah, let's do it in 2025.
Cilantro, mate.
All right. Well,
cold tea.